but we're going to be looking at during Lent, what it means to become emotionally healthy people, what we're calling an emotionally healthy spirituality. It's based on largely a book written by a friend, Pete Scazzaro, and Pete has talked a lot about what it means to look inwardly and to deal with our own emotional, spiritual, psychological health so that we can be the people that God made us to be. And the thesis of it is this. He basically just says, it's impossible. Let's see what he says. He says, you can't be spiritually mature while remaining emotionally immature. If you've not done the emotional work, the work on your own heart and mind, and you're not willing to grow up emotionally, it doesn't matter what you do spiritually, you won't be mature. And what we want to do is engage in a process, and that's what Lent is about. Lent is about some disruptions. It's a way to reorder our life. We do some things that help us not focus on ourselves. For me, it often needs to involve food because food is one of the ways I live. It's also just one of the natural ways that I tend to meet my own selfish desires. And they're not all bad, but the truth is when I live in a city like we live in, if I wake up in the morning and I want sushi, guess what? I get sushi. If I want a Korean taco, I get a Korean taco. If I want barbecue, I will find barbecue by the end of the day because that's what I want. And the truth is, that's not so bad. It's actually a pretty great life, but it does set a principle for me that says often you get what you want. And guess what? One of the best things we can teach ourselves and teach our kids is that we don't always get what we want. That we get to then have the privilege of focusing on others and that actually is the very best life that we can live. And so along the way in this series, we're going to look at some characters from Scripture. And if you hadn't read the Bible much, you may not know this. But guess what? Part of what makes the Bible so amazing and so beautiful is that it is filled with people, and I mean filled with people, that are broken and messed up just like you, and most of them even worse than you. You read the Bible and you feel pretty good about yourself. One of the all-stars in the Hall of Fame in the Bible is a guy named Abraham who goes out on this amazing adventure to follow God. God tells him, go to a new land and follow me and trust me. And Abraham trusts him. And then sometimes he doesn't. Like one of the first things he did was he sold his wife to another man for money. Not many husbands in the room have done that before. Not your best day when you do it, right? And yet, he made mistakes. He did what you're going to see in this. He tried to control things. He tried to take over for God, put things in his own hands, and it never turned out very good. You've done it in different ways. And what we're going to learn today from the life of King Saul. And so in many ways, if you read the Bible, it's almost like watching a Jerry Springer show. You just be like, that's not the way you want to live. And then there's this one character in the Bible that shows up and lives a perfect life and loves unconditionally and sacrificially dies so that we can know what life is supposed to be like. His name is Jesus. He was the liberating king that came to free all people. And when you encounter Jesus in the Bible, you go, that's what it's supposed to look like. And what we get to do during Lent is look inwardly and figure out the ways that we want to become and be formed to be more like Jesus. We get to slow down. We get to ask the right questions. We get to be shaped by the Spirit that is Jesus. And that is a beautiful, beautiful gift. So today we're going to look at the life of King Saul. So if you can imagine this, I know it might be hard to imagine, but King Saul was the world leader in his time. Israel and Judah had just been consolidated, and so they became the world superpower. He came from a wealthy family. He was tall. He had all the airs of success. And yet, the most powerful leader in the world, can you imagine this, was unbelievably insecure. He needed flattery at every corner. He was afraid of criticism and would pursue anyone who attacked him or criticized him anyway. Can you believe that a world leader like that could even exist? Hard to fathom, right? I'm telling you, this guy was an emotional toddler. If he felt like someone threatened him, he would lose it. And yet, here's the thing. Saul becomes a portrait for what all of us could become. I believe Lent is this opportunity every year to refocus our aim towards Jesus. And the truth is, we can be powerful and insecure. We can see it easily in others. We miss it too often in ourselves. And Saul embodied so many things that we don't want to be. On the outside, it looked like he was religious and cared about God. He would offer big sacrifices. He would say he wanted to please God. But he didn't tend to the inner life. Pete Scazzaro reminds us that we can do spiritual things and still be a mess on the inside. That actually, that activity, can you imagine doing Lent and all the practice of Lent, and you try to do it like a discipline thing? Anybody done this before? Where you're like, I'm going to be the best Christian. Being the best Christian will make you the worst Christian. Feeling like you did Christianity right will lead to a self-righteousness that no one can stomach. Anybody been with somebody that just like they've got the Bible figured out and they know they've got all the answers, right? And after about 5 minutes, you're like, I can't handle it. Like those people that think the Bible is something you argue about, right? Nobody likes those people. Their mothers don't like them. Their mothers pray they don't come home for Christmas. Because the Bible's not something you argue about. The Bible was intended as this love letter to help us figure out how to connect with God and how to be the people that God made us to be. Pete Scazzaro reminds us that our activity for God must flow from our life with God. That as we connect to God and we feel connected and held by God and loved by God in our low times and our hard times and lifted up to do the work that we're called to do, then life makes sense. Then it's beautiful. So during Lent, I want to invite you through the life of King Saul and many other characters we're going to look at during this Lenten series, to look at how we can deal with our own inner life to become emotionally and spiritually healthy and vibrant, so that when we are celebrating the resurrection in 6 weeks, that we're able to say, I believe God is up to something beautiful in me and through me. So there's a few things in this story of King Saul that I think are really helpful that I want you to see. And here's the first, is that spiritual activity can be a way of avoiding the inner life. You can get so busy doing spiritual things that you never actually tend to what's happening inside. We see this play out in 1 Samuel 13. There's this massive battle. There's a potential attack that's about to happen to the nation of Israel. And King Saul is waiting. He's been told by the prophet, the priest Samuel, to wait for 7 days and that God would direct them as to what to do. But as they're waiting, it tells us in verse 8 that Saul waited for Samuel for 7 days, the amount of time that he'd been told by Samuel to wait. But the prophet did not come to Gilgal. And the people began to slip away. A few more days and Saul would have no army left, he thought. So he decided to take matters into his own hands. Does that sound familiar to anybody? You're in a predicament. You don't know what's next. God invites you to wait, but you decide to manipulate it and control it. And Saul said, bring me the animals for the burnt offerings and the offerings for the peace for the Lord. Although Saul, this is a really important part, he was not a priest. He wasn't supposed to make that kind of sacrifice. He was way out of his lane. He was way out of his authority. He was way beyond what he was supposed to do. But he offered the burnt offering himself without waiting for Samuel, the priest, the prophet. And immediately after Saul finished the offering, when the aroma of the sacrifice lingered over the land, isn't this just how it works? God shows up just at the moment that you said you couldn't wait any longer. And Samuel arrived. And Saul went out to greet him and to pay his respects, but Samuel knew Saul had overstepped his bounds. What have you done? Saul said, the people were deserting me. You didn't come when you promised, and the Philistines were gathering for war at Michmash. I mean, just imagine, where could be worse to be than Michmash? I don't know where it is. And nobody wants to be at Michmash. If you're feeling like you got a bad day, just say, I'm glad I'm not at Michmash. And the Philistines were gathering for war at Mishmash. I thought the Philistines are going to attack me here in Gilgal, and I haven't even asked the Eternal One to favor us. So I took matters into my own hands. I didn't want to. It echoes the words of Paul, right? The things I want to do, I don't do. The things I don't want to do, I do. I didn't want to, but I offered the burnt offering myself. Samuel said, that was a foolish thing, Saul. You've not kept the commandment that the eternal, your true God gave to you. He was willing to establish your kingdom over Israel for all time. What's he saying? God had an amazing plan for you. You just wouldn't wait on it. You just decided to make your own plan. And when we're emotionally immature, we struggle to wait. Patience is not the thing we want to do. We don't trust God's plan, and we often want to create one ourselves. Ecclesia, find those places where we struggle to trust, to lean in, and we start trying to do the things ourselves. And instead, let's try to pursue health. What else do we learn from the life of Saul? And this is for all of us, that we, like Saul, often manage appearances instead of confessing reality. The truth is, for Saul and for many of us, we become really concerned with how people see us, wanting the flattery of others, wanting the fawning of others. In 1 Samuel, you see Saul acknowledge what was going on. He says to Samuel the prophet, I've sinned. I've disobeyed the voice of the Eternal One and your instructions because I was afraid. Say it with me. Because I was afraid of the people. I listened to their counsel instead of yours. This is what happens when we become emotionally unhealthy. We talked about it in the last series. People become really big and God becomes really small. What people think about us is so important, and what God thinks about us and what we are called to do becomes really insignificant. And if we can become emotionally healthy, if we become spiritually mature, we begin to say, like, you know what matters to me is what God believes about me. I am God's beloved. I am made to do God's work, and nothing else in the world matters. There's no one left to impress. And it's when we become those people, we actually become the most impressive, right? You find somebody that's willing to swim upstream to do the right thing, and you go, I want them to be my friend. That's who I want to be with. That's the kind of person I want to be. Ecclesia, we were made to live that kind of life. My friend Dan Allender describes it this way. He says, we're far more committed to managing how we appear than to risking being known. But healing only comes when we tell the truth about what is actually happening in us. We're often trying to look so good to others, and something radical and beautiful would happen if we just acknowledge what we're feeling and where we are, and we could actually find some healing along the way. The other thing we see later in 1 Samuel 15 is that Saul actually goes to, you can just pull it down, I'm going to summarize it for you. Saul actually goes to Samuel the prophet and says, hey, we're going to be with the elders. Will you say and do some things that make me look really good? Can you imagine a world leader acting like that? He's just so like, I want to be important. Will somebody flatter me, please? Have you felt the neediness of wanting to, like, would somebody just say I'm important? And where does that come from when you see people acting that way, right? It's always insecurity. And something happens when we deal with our own insecurity. When we start to walk that path. I don't know what it takes for most of us. I can tell you this. I'll bet you a drink that I had the most interesting high school job of anybody in the room. If you had a better one, tell me, I'll buy you a drink. But I got hired when I was a sophomore in high school by a guy named Pete in Southwest Houston. Pete was an alcoholic who was also a diabetic. And Pete was able to get sober, but getting sober meant he gave up alcohol to embrace sugar at a next level. Pete loved Reese's peanut butter cups. I do too. But the Reese's peanut butter cups were killing Pete. They ultimately made him blind, and he lost most of a leg. And Pete realized that sugar or alcohol were both going to kill him, but that alcohol would kill him faster. And what Pete needed to do was to be at an AA meeting every day to stay sober. But it got harder to get to meetings when he was blind and he'd lost a leg. So he started a business and he hired me to work with him. And my job was to go to AA meetings, and I would record inspirational talks at AA meetings. And then we would duplicate them on these things some of you have never seen before. They're called a cassette. And we had these big machines, and there would be like 12 of them. We'd duplicate them, and then Pete would sell them to other people like him that desperately needed a meeting every day, but couldn't get to a meeting every day. And surprisingly, he started a really good business because there were other people just trying to survive in that place. So I had this unbelievable experience in high school, to my job being to go regularly to AA meetings. And I'll never forget this guy who sat down and told his story and just said, he started to describe how he ended up in jail and went through the kind of torment in jail that I could hardly fathom. It's the kind of thing at 16 that you needed to hear. Like, I don't want to go there. And he was going through drug and alcohol withdrawals in jail. And as he told the whole story that was so painful to hear, at the end of it, he said, "It's the best thing that ever happened to me." And it became the moment that he stopped managing appearances. He started pretending, and he actually dealt with what happened. And I remember thinking, I hope I can learn those lessons if my rock bottom could not be that low, that would be great, right? Like, is it possible, whatever you have to go through this Lent, is it possible that you could get to a place that you no longer want to manage appearances? And is it possible you could do it without going through withdrawals in jail? Like, that you could actually hit a place where you go, I'm going to see what's most important. And I kind of made it my mission to go, like, I don't want to ever have to get that low to figure out what's really going on and start telling the truth. For Saul, just like for us, managing appearances was like cancer to the soul. Thirdly, we learn from Saul that what we don't heal, we transmit. This is the thing with our own unhealth. And this is just true for all of us, because life is what it is. We have been through grief. We have been through hardship. We have been through pain. We have been through trauma. And when we go through those painful things, when we experience trauma and we don't heal from it, what happens is we share it. We transmit it to other people. That unhealth just spreads. We see it clearly in the life of Saul in 1 Samuel 18. So this is what we know, that David had some gifts. And Saul realized that he actually appointed him to be like the Secretary of Defense. He was the guy in charge of their protection. And so it tells us in Samuel 18 that David went wherever Saul sent him, and he was successful in battle. And as a result, Saul made him commander of his army. And all the people, even those who served Saul, were pleased. On the day they were returning from David's victory over the Philistine, the women came out from all the cities of Israel to meet the king. They'd had a big victory. This was good for the nation. This was good for Saul. But they came out and they were singing and dancing with tambourines and other instruments, making joyful music. And at one point, the women sang as they danced and celebrate. And the women sang, "Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands." This was a triumph. But this chant made Saul tremble with fury. Saul said, "Do you hear this? They've said that David has killed tens of thousands, that I only killed thousands. What else is left for him but my kingdom?" Now, Ecclesia, it sounds ridiculous when you're the king. You're the leader of the world and you're threatened by other people's success, right? Here Saul is. This is his nation. He's the king. And David getting some praise is totally threatening. He's unbelievably insecure, unbelievably emotionally unhealthy. It seems really clear to us. And yet, if we're telling the truth, you can acknowledge a moment probably really recently where someone else was successful and you didn't like it. Something in you was hurt, or the opposite. Someone failed and a part of you rejoiced. Maybe you didn't say it out loud, but you felt it. I got to tell you, Ecclesia, this is the reason that we engage in Lenten practice, a reason that we look inward. It's a reason that we say we want to acknowledge those feelings and bring healing and hope. Dan Allender says it this way. He says, unconfessed jealousy does not stay contained within a single heart. It distorts the emotional field of the entire community. Have you ever noticed that? How when you've got people that can't see other people succeed, they struggle to celebrate the gifts of others? That kind of jealousy contaminates everything. I got to tell you, I just came back from this trip to Latin America, and we were with this inspiring church. But I'll tell you what was really beautiful about it. We were with amazing leaders from all over Latin America that were really accomplished, like remarkable people. What made it a remarkable gathering is that none of them seemed to carry an ego with them. They weren't afraid or threatened by others. And when you find that dynamic, it's beautiful. That's the kind of community you want to be a part of. And you've experienced the opposite. When one person brings their ego, it brings out the worst in every single person. Allender explains it this way. He says, pride and envy never remain private sins. They leak. What one person refuses to own in themselves becomes a contagion in the community. If you bring ego to what you do, you will bring out the worst in all of your coworkers. They'll start to posture in different ways. And when we work together in a way that's selfless, beautiful things begin to happen. Ecclesia, those are the people we're made to be. Lent is the season that we start to look inwardly and go, am I functioning with a lot of ego needs? Am I bringing a presence that's actually disruptive? Am I able to celebrate when others succeed? It's a great season to ask these questions. Then lastly, this is what we learned from Saul, and then I want to share with you just a few thoughts about Lent that I think would be helpful. One of the things that's amazing about Saul is he's got all the power, he's got all this money, he's the king. You would think everyone wants to be with him, and guess what? Saul has no friends. No friends. We see it in David's friendship with Jonathan. David and Jonathan were dear friends. And this is what you need to know, that power without friendship is dangerous. Friendship roots us. Real friends make life worth living. I got to tell you, Ecclesia, you know what I care about when I die? I want to have a net worth and friendship that's high. I want when I die to be able to go, he had great friends. I may not be rich, but I'll be rich in friendship. And I got to tell you, that's the kind of wealth you can't buy. And guess what? The wealthier you are, the harder it might be to have those kind of friends. That's the kind of thing that makes life truly worth living. And yet many of us have struggled. I talked about this in the last series, especially men. Let's be honest. Men have struggled to have deep friendships. There are a lot of women in the room that tell their friends on a regular basis, I love you. There are many fewer men that have other male friends that they say, I love you. I believe in you. I'm proud of you. And the truth is that we all need it. I was really maybe the most encouraged I've been in a long time at Ecclesia this last month when just spontaneously in a sermon I said, we're going to gather some men. The women are gathering all the time. You're going to have like a Christian yoga class this afternoon. And you're going to do 2 retreats before we're through with the next month. I don't know how many times the women get together, but it seems to be a lot. And the men, we rarely do because we're just don't tend to have the right priorities. So we gathered on the first Tuesday of the month spontaneously, just within a few days. And we had over 70 men come gather with us. And we're going to do it again. The men all just said, like, we're doing it again the next first Tuesday. So March 3rd, 6:30, we're going to light a fire in the fire pit. You can bring your own cigars, bring something to share. And we're going to sit down. And we had honest and real conversations, one of the best nights of my month. So feel free to join us for that, men. Women, go to the next women's event. Do what you need to do as well to build friendships. But one of the reasons that we don't have, especially men, but also women, those kind of friendships is because of what Bonhoeffer reminds us. This is what Bonhoeffer says. He says, the person who loves their dream of community will destroy community. You hear what he's saying? The one who loves their dream of community will destroy community. The one who loves those around them will create community. This is the thing, Ecclesia, hear me. You have an idealized version of who's supposed to be your friend. Most of us have a list, and you're like, what I want is one friend who's kind of a nerdy scientist, but really cool and handsome and kind of quirky. We'll call him Ross. I want another friend that's kind of beautiful and a great hostess, a little bit controlling and maniacal, but overall really fascinating. We'll call her Monica. Close, though. Rachel's also beautiful. I want a golden retriever type friend that's not threatening, but really fun and super loyal and eats your food and hangs out, and we'll call him. All right, you know where I'm going. And we want all of them to be absolutely gorgeous and successful and have an apartment in New York, right? And the truth is, you look at your real friends and you're like, well, my real friends are a depressed, burned out elementary school teacher. And a guy who's a recovering sex addict. And a friend who's been through a bankruptcy and a divorce and doesn't know what next. And a friend that drinks too much and gets angry. And guess what? Those are the best friends you could ever have. When you choose to love those people and say, you're my friend. You're so not perfect. But guess what? Like the eclectic, cool, hippie musician, we'll call her Phoebe. She doesn't exist. She's not real. In the real world, Phoebe would have panic attacks all the time and be borrowing money from you and never pay it back. That's the real Phoebe. Something happens when you just choose to go, I'm going to be friends with the people in front of me, and it's in their brokenness that we're going to develop a great friendship. One of my best friends on the planet, he would do anything for me, is a recovering sex addict who now helps other people get out of some of the traps that really ensnared him. And I'll tell you, he would do anything for me. I love this man. He's a beautiful human being. And you would be privileged to have a friend like him. I'm privileged to have a friend like him. Choose to love the people around you. You don't deserve them. I don't deserve them. But we need each other. Frederick Buechner puts it this way. He says, the worst thing that can happen to us is not that we suffer, but that we suffer alone. You hear what he's saying? You're going to suffer. You're going to lose somebody you love. There's going to be trauma. There's going to be accidents. There's going to be illness. There's going to be sickness and disease. Things are going to go wrong in life. The question is, if you suffer alone, that's not a way to live. But you have to engage in what it takes to build friendships. If you want to be friend rich too, you're going to have to work in investing in those kind of friendships to make them a reality. Do you know that most of what we know about addiction, we know from a study that happened, I think it was in the 50s. It was a study, you know about this study where they put rats in a cage with clean water and drug-laced water. Anybody familiar with this study? So they put rats in a cage, and there would be clean water they could drink. There would be drug-laced water. And what happened was the rats would eventually, over time, go more and more to the drug-laced water. They would drink too much, and they would overdose. Heroin or cocaine-infused water. A guy named Bruce Alexander a few years ago decided there was something wrong with the study. He said they should do it again. It's called the Rat Park Experiment. He put the rats together, not in isolation in a cage, but in community. There were hamster wheels to run around. There was a little bit of cheese. There were some things to do. They had children, and they had social opportunities, a little bit of a playground. And they also had clean water and drug-laced water. And all of the rats at some point tried the drug-laced water. But eventually, they all stopped drinking the drug-laced water. They only drank the clean water because they had community, they had connection, they had the life that they were made for. And in the first experiment, there was 100% overdose rate. In the second experiment, there was 0% overdose rate. Hear this, Ecclesia. We're made for community. We're made for connection. We're made for each other. If we will walk with each other faithfully, life is better. King Saul had everything and he had no friends, which meant he had nothing. We want to be the kind of people that say, this is what it looks like to make great friends. Saul is an example of what happens to us when we are emotionally immature and we fail to deal with our inner world. So as we look at Lent, let me give you just a few practices that I would love for you to consider that would help you look inside during this period. So I'm going to give you a few categories, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to suggest in these categories, I'm just going to suggest a few things. This is not conclusive. There are a bunch more things you can think of, but this is my experience, is that the thing that I probably need to do, and many of you have already made a path for Lent, but this might be some things you could add. What I often experience in something like this is the thing that I kind of clench when I hear it, that's probably the thing I have to do. So just listen and hear if you're like, oh, I think that's me. So let's think about it in this way. First is just to think about embodied care. What does it look like to have some self-care for your body in this season? This could be things like actually drinking the amount of water that your body requires. We're taking a significant prayer walk each day. Silence, prayer, contemplating those in your life that you love, asking God to deal with some of the problems in the world. Here's one that you can think about is just to go to bed early. Maybe it'd be on time, but just get the sleep. Anybody flinch on that one? I think I saw half the room move, like to go to bed early. To pick at least a meal a day that you eat slowly. You take your time. Here's a few that could help you slow down. What if in the morning, before you touch your phone, you just had 5 minutes of silence? Just 5 minutes. But you don't touch anything. You just, every day, just going to have 5 minutes of silence. Or maybe you do it before you go to bed. Some things that you could name in the inner life. So this is what I would suggest to you. If you had a little bit of a journal, and you don't have to, I know everybody says journal and nobody does. There's like 3 people and they're going to publish it and be rich. The rest of us are just going to have empty journals everywhere. Just think of even if you just journal the word, this is what I would love for you to do, is name at the end of the day what emotions you've been feeling that day. I was angry. I was anxious. I was hungry. I noticed when I was hungry, I was angry. Anybody else? Right? And you just say, this is part of what I'm noticing about myself. And just that we take the time to name that inner life. Then we'd engage in some practices for letting go. If you're a teenage parent, this needs to be the air that you breathe. You get to guide, but you can't really control anymore. You get to direct and point, but you don't really have any hands-on mechanisms that you focus some prayers on releasing the outcomes. Maybe you want to say once every day, I don't know. Maybe you need to put down the remote control and give it to somebody else. Anybody here that's a remote, you have to have the remote control? Maybe you have to be the one driving. My wife and I have the opposite. We want the other to have the remote control so we can blame them when the show is bad, right? That you'd engage in some truth telling. There'd be at least one person that you'd say, like, I'm gonna be honest with them, I'm gonna tell the truth about what's going on. Maybe a practice of unknown service. You just find a place for some secret generosity to share with someone, to serve someone in a way that they don't know anything about. And then lastly, if you would take some time this Lent to name your grief and your trauma. So there are a number of, just life is life. So we've all lived through some things. And there's something that happens when we take the time to name it. When we can name it, we're able to have the power to actually go through it. But to be able to do that means we got to take some time and go, these are some of the things that I've endured. These are the losses. These are the pains. These are the abuses. These are the injustices. And as I walk through life, this is some of what I'm dealing with. And if we can name that, then part of naming it means, hey, maybe I need to get some help with this. Maybe there's a book I need to read. Maybe I need to see a therapist. I need to talk to the pastor and say, hey, how do I move forward in this to find greater health? So, as we come to communion, will you give me a moment to pray for you and with you, that this Lent would be a season, that we all move towards the kind of maturity and health that God made us for. God, I thank you for my brothers and sisters. I thank you that we have within our path every Lent, every day, the opportunity to redirect towards greater health. We don't have to be like Saul and just watch the wheels come off. We know that Saul started with great promise, that God wanted to direct him in the right path, and just some things went off the rails and he didn't see it and want to follow it. And we see in ourselves the capacity to do the exact same. We ask God that we could learn in safe and simple ways, that we can move towards the kind of health that allows us to focus on others, that we can be a part of a community like the one I visited this week in Costa Rica that just says, we're going to take care of one another. We're not going to try to live life alone. And that this Lent would be a season for that kind of beauty and health and generosity. Lord, may it be so. As we come to communion, could we be reminded once again that you love us profoundly, that you are holding us in our lowest moments, and our highest moments, you're the one lifting us up, that we can do nothing apart from you, and that we are best when we love the people that you placed around us. Help us, God, to live that life and to find joy in it each day.